Well, good morning, everyone. If you've joined us the past 2 days, welcome back. If you're joining us today for the first time, welcome. I'm Philip Roosevelt. I'm the SDSU Extension IPM Coordinator. I do a lot of field research involving soybean, primarily insects though. But anyway, welcome to the Crop Hour session and thank you for joining us. Please feel free to ask questions at any time using the Q&A button or that chat button shown in that little snippet at the beginning there at the bottom of your Zoom window. At the end of today's presentation, I will display a QR code that will allow you to obtain CCA credits if you need them. In order to scan that code, you do need to download the Certified Crop Advisor app and use the scan course code function. And we'll show that QR code only for a bit at the end. So have your phone ready when that pops up. So with that, our speaker today is Jon Kleinjan. He's our Extension Crop Production Associate, and he does yearly research on corn, soybean, wheat, and I believe sunflower now as well. But with that, welcome, Jon, and looking forward to your presentation. Oh, you got to unmute yourself, Jon.
You'd think after all these years running Zoom that I would be used to that, but still make that mistake once in a while. Thank you, Phil. Nice to be sitting in my office on this cold, windy morning rather than traveling on the road. So just thought I'd visit with you guys today a little bit about some of the soybean research that we've done in the last year. And first, I'd just like to review. And why is that not working? I'm going to have to stop, I guess, and oh, there we go. All right, I'm assuming everyone can see my slides. Phil, you'll let me know if it's not working, but anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about soybean yields over the last year before I get into the research that we've done, and just kind of an update. I did this with the corn hour last week too. You know, the drought conditions in 2021 somewhat eased in the most part for a lot of us in 2022. With the exception of a couple areas in the state. So just keep in mind this drought map here as we look at the next slide. So those of you that were not on last week, what each box is here in the state is a testing location that we have for our soybean variety trials. And these trials are accessible on the SDSU Extension website. I tell people the best way to find it is just Google SDSU crop performance testing, and you can see how the varieties rank between each other at all of these locations. But each box here is a testing site. The top number in black is the 5-year average for that site, and then the bottom number is what we saw in 2022. So if the number's in red, it is below the 5-year average, and if it is green, it's at or above the 5-year average. So you can see our best soybean yields in 2022 were in the north, Brown County, which is typically one of our better producing areas. We had good yields in South Shore right at the 5-year average there. And Brookings County, we were just below the 5-year average, still pretty good yields there, but not what we're used to seeing. And then it was pretty dry in Kingsbury County at Bancroft. Han County, not too bad. Out in Reliance, we were dry. And then down in Mount Vernon, we were dry also. So we were significantly under the 5-year average there. Soybeans, as you guys know, it's all about rain timing. We can be dry all summer, and if it starts raining in August, we'll still get a pretty good soybean crop, but that just didn't pan out in some of these areas. So if you look at overall, the 5-year average for my program, we averaged 60 bushel beans across all varieties. In 2022, we averaged 54, so we were, right at 10% below normal. Let's look how that compares to last year. Pretty similar to last year. The 5-year average dropped a little bit because we were down last year, but we were 5 bushel below normal in 2021 as well. So anyway, just a brief review there. If you look at soybean yields over the last 20 years in my program, we've gone from back in 2003 to averaging around, the mid 40s, and now we're up in the low 60s if you follow the trend line. We would be even a little higher, but we've been below trend line the last couple of years due to dry conditions. But overall, the slope of this line is 0.88. So roughly 9/10 of a bushel a year, soybean yields have been going up in my program. And if you look at the USDA numbers, they're at a little bit lower yield level for the state, but I think they're at a 0.7 or 0.8 bushels an acre per year yield increase too. So the breeders are still doing good things with genetics and soybeans, and yields keep creeping a little higher every year. So moving on, the topics I'm going to talk about today are biological seed treatment study, and this is part of a national effort that we're a part of. Biological end fixation. If you remember last year, we talked about that a little bit. So we're in the second year of a national study for that. And then I'm going to sum up data planting by fungicide. We've done that study now for 3 years in Brookings here. And then finally, just a couple slides on some fact sheets that I'm a co-author for. So the first topic now is biological seed treatments. And just as an introduction, you guys probably have all seen, and continue to see new products coming online all the time, these biologicals. We get asked to review or to test some of them every year. And basically it's biological additives to either seed or fertilizer or just the product itself, maybe in furrow or sprayed on the plant. And somehow these biological organisms are supposed to increase, fertilizer uptake or plant health or a variety of things. So the amount of products has just skyrocketed in the last few years, and I don't see an end in sight to that. I just saw in the news the other day that Corteva bought a biological company. I think was it Pivot Bio? Maybe I'm thinking wrong, but it doesn't seem like this biological thing is going to go away anytime soon, and there just seems to be another just continued increased interest in it. So what we decided to do as part of this national group that I'm a part of is we looked at 9 products, commonly marketed products, and I'll get to those on the next slide. And we looked at those over in 50 locations over 17 states last year. So it was the same experiment in every state. Some of the products were not registered in the South. So I believe there's 3 of them that didn't get tested in the South, but for the most part, all the products were tested in every state. And I think some of the states added a couple more. I didn't do that because I didn't quite know where to get the product from. Maybe we'll look at doing this in 2023, getting some of the common products from South Dakota. But basically what we did, we got all 9 products, and we treated them according to instructions. We put it on top of the fungicide seed treatment. We had a variety of beans supplied by Asgrow, and the protocol for all of these seed treatments was to apply it on top of the seed on what's already there. So fungicide, insecticide, inoculant, whatever they had. And honestly, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt because some of them you can apply 6 months ahead of time. Some of them you had to apply the morning before you planted. So it was a little bit complicated, but we got it done. So as I said, 50 locations in 17 states. In South Dakota, we looked at Bath, Brookings, Miller, and Renner. So I tried to get a kind of a broad geographic area in South Dakota. So the objectives of this study, obviously, to identify yield response in soybean to biological seed treatments, and then secondly, to evaluate any influence on soybean plant nutrient status. So we looked at the grain following harvest. I haven't seen any of those results yet. That stuff got shipped off to Ohio State for analysis. And then some of the states did some trifoliate sampling at R3. We just didn't have the labor to get that done here in South Dakota. So that's just kind of a preliminary analysis. So we'll see if there's any, if there's any nutrient status update on seed treatments in soybean. Okay, here's a list of the products. So you have the treatment numbers here on the left. Number 10 was an untreated control. And then here's just a list of the different products. I don't know if any of you on board today or on the call are using any of these. Here's the list of active ingredients, and I'm not going to read through all of those, but some of these are common, I can't say for sure, but you might see, just for example, as this one, don't ask me to pronounce that, but you might see that in other products besides this. So some of these are common across different products, but these are the ones that were chosen by the PI at Ohio State to look at. So that's what we looked at. And moving on, what did we see? So we did 50 sites, right? I said that in an earlier slide. At this time, I've only seen results from the national group. Only 41 have been reported at the time I put this talk together. Out of those 41, only 4 sites had any significant differences in yield. And it looks like I got a typo there. But oddly enough, one of those sites was ours in Renner, South Dakota. And then there was 3 in Wisconsin. So let's look at Renner. So we did have significant responses. If you look here at the data, the untreated control was right at 53 bushels an acre. There were 4 products that yielded more than the control, although if you look at the statistics, they were not significantly different. But you know, you look at Rise, for example, was 2.3 bushels better than the control. Again, not statistically different. But it kind of makes you wonder if something could be happening there. If we looked at enough locations, would that difference be significant or not? And then we also had 5 that yielded less than the control. So let's look at all the combined sites in South Dakota. So unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, whatever you want to say, when we combine all 4 locations in South Dakota, the control yielded higher than all the other seed treatments. So and here's just a list from highest yielding to lowest yielding here. All were fairly close to another. I mean, we only have 1.2 bushels spread between the lowest yielder and highest yielder. So here's the difference from the control in this column. And then over here's a different kind of statistics I'm just starting to play around with, which is based on more probability. So in other words, and I haven't done too much of this yet, I'm just kind of getting into it. But in other words, so the Volt IP Plus, or let's look at the Rise, because remember, Rise was 2.5 bushels better, or 2.4 bushels better at Renner. If you look at the whole state, it was actually 0.7 of a bushel below the control. And how confident are we that that difference is greater than 0? We're only 20% confident that this 0.7 is different than 0. So really, the highest level of confidence we have here is 46.5% chance that this one is 0.1 less than the control. I wouldn't say that this gives us a high degree of confidence that any of these are substantially different than the control or substantially less. So anyway, no positive yield response in South Dakota to any of these products. Looking at the nationwide results, this is a graph of the 41 locations, and basically what each of these graphs are, you see there's 9 of them, or charts I should say. This is plotting the treatment 1 against the untreated control. So a 1-to-1 ratio, if they're yielding the same, would be this 45-degree line. And then these dotted lines are 10% above or below. So, you know, if a treatment was going to yield more than the control, you'd expect all the dots to be on the upper side of this line. And you can kind of see, looking at all these, treatment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all fairly similar to the check or to the untreated control. I mean, once in a while you get one that's a little bit higher at one location, but just summing all these up, there's really not much difference in these product versus the control. So nationwide results of this, less than 10% of sites demonstrated a yield response, and therefore preliminary results show that a yield response to seed treatment is going to be unlikely. However, I will say maybe we need to study more environmental conditions. Are there certain conditions where these biological seed treatments are more likely to work? I think we need to get maybe a little bit better handle on that. This study will be continued again in 2023. So we'll see what happens. Typically, when we do these studies, we don't make any friends. The companies always come back and say, well, you did something wrong. You didn't put the treatment on right, or who knows, any level of things. But I'd like to think when we're doing 50 sites a year that we're going to hone in on what's actually happening there. So anyway, moving on. Oh, wait. If you want to look at more of the, remember there was 3 responsive sites in Wisconsin. Sean did a pretty nice job of putting together a little preliminary publication on that. And Phil, if you'd like to put that link in the chat right now, I sent the link to Phil, put it in there. And then if you want to look at that, they had a nice publication out there. I don't know what Conley does in Wisconsin, but he always seems to be able to find response to some of the stuff that no one else can. But anyway, moving on. The nitrogen fixation study, basically the soybeans require N fertilization, and then, well, we'll just talk about the objectives here. We're trying to figure out if there's certain areas where soybeans might require nitrogen. I know this has probably been done to death. Does sulfur play into that, or is nitrogen fixation good enough? So basically, we're trying to determine environments where response to nitrogen and sulfur is likely. These are the states that participated in 2021. I've not been given a map yet of who participated in 2022, but I'm assuming it was very similar. Each state is supposed to pick at least one theoretically responsive site and one non-responsive site. So basically, a responsive site would be a sandier soil or a lower fertility soil that should respond to nitrogen or sulfur fertilization. And honestly, it's hard to get sulfur response in South Dakota just because of the parent materials of our soils. But in order to keep the travel to a minimum, both of these sites are in Brookings County. Aurora is just east of town, about 5 miles. A lighter soil type, lower fertility, lower CEC. And then our Brookings site has been north of town here about 3 miles. Very good soil type up there. So in theory, that should not respond to fertilizer on soybeans. And their map's a little bit wrong here. Both of these dots should be right on top of each other. So if any of you notice that, I'm just going to point that out. So the treatments. So what we have here, we had 5 treatments in soybean and 1 in corn. I'll explain the corn one when we get down to the bottom. But basically, treatment number 1, no fertilizer applied. Treatment number 2 was 125 pounds per acre of AMS. So we get some nitrogen, 26 pounds an acre N, and 30 pounds of sulfur. Next one was gypsum, 130 pounds, which just gives us the sulfur component of 30 pounds an acre. And then we had urea, 58 pounds an acre, which just gives us the nitrogen component. So these 2 treatments are trying to see if there's a difference between these 2 nutrients. And then finally, I'd call number 5 the luxury treatment. So we had roughly 300 pounds of urea and 64 pounds of AMS applied at planting, and then again at R3. So we're getting 300 pounds of N and 30 pounds of sulfur total in that treatment. So no one's probably going to do that. That's a pretty expensive treatment, but it's just kind of a pie in the sky approach to see what might happen. And then the final treatment was unfertilized corn that we had planted on the edges. And basically what that was, we took plant samples of this study at R2, R4, R6, and then at harvest, and soil samples at those times too. What the corn is, the corn was unfertilized, and it's a non-nodulated plant. So the plant sample there should give us a picture of what nitrogen is available in the soil profile at that time. And then we can kind of translate that back to what the soybean is doing at given times. So don't ask me the science behind that. The Kansas State group is doing all that stuff. And we should see a 2-year result here pretty soon on the tissue analysis, I would think. So here's just a view from the top. As I said, we had unfertilized corn planted on each side, 4 rows. Each plot here is 8 rows wide. This was after the first plant sample was taken. We took a meter of row from each plot. The harvest rows are going to be in the middle of each plot that we took for yield, but just wanted to show you kind of how this is laid out. So 6 treatments replicated 4 times here. Okay, what did we see? So over the last 2 years, this is the average here at Aurora. Remember, this is our theoretical responsive site. The control yielded 40 bushels, and then each treatment was a little bit higher. So Aurora was pretty highly variable, so I don't know how much stock I put in these numbers. But here it looks, like there's a 4 bushel response to sulfur, and a 5 bushel response to urea and the super. These must both round to 45. I don't know why that one's so much higher than the other, but anyway, Brookings, not much response. Controls right in the middle. Actually, we had a little bit less yield for gypsum and AMS. The only one that was trending a little higher was the luxury treatment. But if we look at the stats, none of these differences are significant. We'd like to see this below 0.1, the PRF, before we'd say those differences are significant. Brookings were not even close. So only a 44% chance that something is going on here. where there's kind of you take 1 minus that 85% chance that there's some sort of difference there. If we combine all the locations, however, we are below that 0.1. So this is Brookings over 2 years, Aurora over 2 years combined. And if we look at the groups with the normal statistics, it looks like if we apply that urea treatment and 58 pounds an acre, it's significantly different than the control. So 3 bushels an acre better. Hard to say if that's random noise or not. But also the luxury treatment, well, you know, we're throwing on 5 times the fertilizer and it's only a bushel better than the urea here. So sulfur treatment, statistically the same as the control. And this is at the 90% confidence level. If I go to the 95% confidence level, the only 2 that are significantly different from another are this one and the control. So anyway, if we look at the cost for treatment, if this is a legitimate difference here, and the stats say it is, 58 pounds of urea per acre on soybeans, 3 bushel difference would be roughly today, what, I suppose about $40 in income if you use $13 beans. So that one looks like it would work. But anyway, let's talk about the national results. So as I mentioned, I haven't seen any report from 2022. Back in 2021, 8 of the 26 sites showed some type of response, but it was a mixture between nitrogen, and sulfur. Their summary of the study in 2021 was N fertilization is unlikely to increase yields, even though that a little bit contradicts what I said in the last slide, what we saw in South Dakota. As I said, in South Dakota, the data was pretty variable, so I don't know how much stock I put in that. And sulfur deficiency should be assessed on a site-by-site basis. That's another national conclusion that they came up with. So as I said, in South Dakota, we have a hard time getting a response to sulfur just because of our parent materials. So anyway, national summary for that. We should see a summary for 2 years here coming up soon. And I guess at that point in time, I'll try to share that. So the last thing we're going to look at today is the data planting by fungicide study. We've done this for 3 years now in South Dakota. And basically what we do, we have 3 planting dates. We got a little bit late on the 2nd planting date this year just due to weather conditions. We try to get in the last part of April, anytime after April 20th. And then we try to do one more the traditional soybean planting date of May 15th. We got a little bit late this year. I think it was actually May 24th. I got a typo there. And then we tried to get June 1st, but since our May planting date got pushed back this year, we pushed back the June planting date as well, try to space them apart. 4 varieties at different maturities. So we had, these are all supplied by BASF. So thank you to them for doing that. The fungicide is supplied by them as well. We have a 0.7 bean, a 1.1 bean, a 1.6 and a 2.1 all in list soybeans this last year. And those have changed a little bit from year to year, but we've kept the maturities roughly the same. And then the other split to this component is we look at all of those with 7 ounces of Veltima. I'm just going to say I'm pronouncing that right at R3. The last 2 years in 2020 and 2021, we used Revitec. So a little bit different mode of action this year. And then this is replicated 3 times just to show you how this is laid out. The 2 strips on the left or the 12 rows here, excuse me, are the April planting date. This first row is a border, but then we have, this would be the 0.07 bean in these 4 rows untreated, and then this would be the 0.7 treated. So basically what we have is a split plot. The main split is planting date, and then the secondary split would be treated, untreated. And then this would be the 1.1 being here, the 1.6 and 2.1, and then these just kind of serpentine back to the end. So replicated 3 times for each planting date. So what did we see in 2022? This slide basically just shows the difference in planting date and then the difference in relative maturity at each planting date. So again, April 28th was the best yielding date, 3 bushel better than May 24th. And then by the time we get to June 10, obviously yield potential is reduced quite a bit when we plant that late. So overall, the 1.6 did very well this year. And typically in the Brookings, I think 1.6 is about the ideal adaptation here. It's kind of a toss up between that and then the early 2s. It depends a little bit on the season, but anywhere in that range, I feel is kind of the ideal range to plant in Brookings County. And that's going to vary a little bit as you go north and south of there. So I'm a little surprised on the early planting date that this early maturing one didn't do a little bit better, because that's typically what we, or I'm sorry, the 2.1, the late maturing one didn't do a little bit better. So let's add the fungicide component here. So I didn't explain the last slide, sorry. What we have is yield on the left, and then the relative maturity of each of these beans on the bottom, and this is split by planting dates. You can see we didn't get too much of a response to fungicide on the earlier varieties, the earlier dates. Pretty good response to the 1.6 on the early planting date. I mean, we had a 5 bushel response to fungicide, and then the middle planting date, we had a pretty good response on the early bean, pretty good on the 1.1, and then not so much on the later beans. And so don't get confused here. This is not the date of fungicide application. I've had people ask me that before. This is the date of planting, and we try to apply the fungicide at R3 for all of these different planting dates. So we're out there. Usually we're out there at about 3 or 4 different times to get the fungicide at the right timing for all of these. But the funny thing is, even though these are planted, you know, basically a month apart, they reach the R3 growth stage within a week of each other. And then these are probably only a week behind that. So they're all pretty close. Beans have a remarkable way of making up ground like that. So anyway, that's in 2022. Here's what we've seen over 3 years. The 0.07 was only tested 2 years. I just should mention that the last 2 years that was not tested in 2020. But obviously, we would expect to see higher yields in late April than mid-May. However, last year kind of skewed the data because we got wet later in the season. And some of the earlier maturing beans last year just ran out of gas by the time that rain came. So the first planting date last year was not as good as it could have been if we would have had timely rains all season. So what we've seen in 3 years is planting in mid-May is just as good as planting in April. That can vary a lot from year to year. I still think beans planted in late April are going to typically out yield mid-May, although I don't know if it's quite as much as people expect. I don't think in South Dakota we're any better off planting anything before April 20th. I'd even say April 25th. Some guys get carried away. I talked to somebody in Aberdeen last year who said, I'm going to start planting my beans on April 10th. And I'm like, man, I think you're pushing it a little bit there. But anyway, this study the last 2 years, mid-May was actually better than planting in April. But like I said, there's quite a bit of variability there. And then by the time we get to early June, we're dropping off potential pretty good. Again, this was skewed last year. Last year, June was the best planting date because of that late rain. So anyway, beans is just a function of precipitation timing. You can go on average and early is going to be better, but man, one rain event will change the whole story there. I will say on average, the best return to fungicide seems to be the May planted beans, even though we're trying to get it at R3 all the time. I don't know why that is, but it seems like most consistently every year we get the best response to fungicide on average from the May planted beans. So it must be something with the timing of the disease and that planting date. And then second would be, you know, the April planting date. And by the time we get to June planted beans, typically we don't see any response to fungicide. So on average, here's just the response to fungicide at the late April planting date, 0 bushels an acre, mid-May, 3 bushels an acre response to fungicide. And then, as I said, by the time we get to June, 0. So a little bit of variability in there, but I would say consistently we get the best response to fungicide on the beans that were planted in mid-May. And then the last slide here is yield by relative maturity over 3 years. So yield again here on the left, and then relative maturity on the bottom. So over 3 years, the 1.6 bean and the 2.1 bean are tied at 63 bushels an acre. Lower maturity 1.1, we're at about 90% of that, 93%. And then the 0.7, we're just starting to lose yield potential with that early maturing bean. So anyway, as I mentioned before, somewhere in this range, I think is the ideal planting for Brookings County. So, oh, wrong direction. So just to sum up data planting by fungicide, early planting has potential. As I mentioned, but the numbers here don't quite show that, but I still think late April planted beans are going to yield the best year in and year out. But a lot of variability there in South Dakota. There's risk there. Seems like we have a consistent response to fungicide. Year in, year out over the whole trial, I see 2 bushels an acre, and it's amazing how consistent that's been over 3 years. That's if I average all 3 planting dates, all maturities. There's a response to fungicide of about 2 bushels an acre. And as I mentioned before, that's highest in the May planting date beans. By the time you get to June 1st, it doesn't seem like fungicide really does much anymore. And then just to reiterate what I said on the last slide, full season beans maximize yield, but genetics are still important. If you have a very good yielding 1.6, it's going to probably outperform a 2.1. So there's a little bit of genetic variability in there that you need to account for. Okay, what am I doing for time? Looks like I'm at about half an hour. I'm your only speaker today, so I guess instead of crop hour, you're getting crop half an hour. But last thing I wanted to talk about is fact sheets. Phil, if you want to put this in the chat, I'm a part of that national group. We do some fact sheets and we post them on the Soybean Research Information Network. Here's an example of one that just came out a couple days ago. We worked on these last summer. We did one on variety selection, soybean replanting. This is just a snapshot of that. And then we did one on planter attachments, and I don't believe that one's been posted yet, but soybean seed, this is just a picture, an example of some of the stuff that's in this replanting. So there's some good pictures on frost damaged beans, hail damaged beans, things like that. I think this is a pretty good reference on checking to see if you need to replant beans after a hail event. So I believe Phil posted the link to this website in the chat. Okay, there's the slide for the lawyers in Spanish. And then finally, I'd just like to say thanks to the South Dakota Soybean Checkoff. And I don't have United Soybean Board on here, but they're big funders of that biological seed treatment study and the nitrogen fixation study that we've been doing. So thank you for your support. And I guess with that, are there any questions? Looks like there's a couple in Q&A. So I'm going to stop my share now.